So earlier this month, I published a video essay titled The Erasure Effect: Consequences of Image Inclusivity. And if you haven't seen that video, it is linked in the description. Check it out. That video essay summarized my thoughts and feelings about the erasure of Black women and girls in the media, specifically by biracial and mixed women and their phenotype. The catalyst of the discussion was, of course, Amandla Stenberg, the actress who was controversially cast as Princess Amari in the book, soon-to-be movie, Children of Blood and Bone. In summary, Children of Blood and Bone is a fantasy story that takes place in fictional Nigeria where all of the characters are monoracial and Black. Amandla, a biracial actress, was cast as Princess Amari, who is not only monoracial and dark-skinned, but suffers from colorism, which is a huge focus of her character and story. Colorism, for those in the back, is defined as discrimination and prejudice of dark skin. No, not any skin tone, specifically dark skin, and usually by those in the same ethnic group. Colorism is a deep-seated issue in the Black community, and dark-skinned Black girls are the primary victims of it. Again, check out The Erasure Effect, along with other videos in my Black Girl Representation Series playlist for a deep dive into these topics. There was a lot of backlash from fans of the book series over the casting of Amandla in this role, and rightfully so. Unfortunately, Amandla decided to disingenuously respond to the criticism on TikTok. So in this video, we're going to break down and take a deep look at her response. I mean, really read in between the lines, and I will give you my opinions and feelings on the matter. And before we begin, please like, comment, and subscribe. If video essays discussing race and social issues as they pertain to Black women and girls specifically trigger you, please click out now. You are not being forced to watch this video and entertain my point of view, so consider yourself warned. I have several videos discussing gaming, anime, and other things if you're interested. Check out my Yap Sessions playlist for all that. Also, this goes without saying, but this isn't an attack on Amandla or those who share her phenotype. These are just my opinions on a video Amandla posted publicly. And to be honest, I'm not surprised at all by this response. So let's get into it.
I am 4 months into training for Children of Blood and Bone, and I am getting my ass whooped. They're killing me out here. Learned so much about myself, my capabilities, and my limits, and my stamina. And day one is around the bend. I've been going through kind of a dark night of the soul the past couple weeks. I honestly just feel like I can't go into the shoot with my chest carrying around all this baggage. So I just want to take this moment to fully address in video format this perception that exists of me that I steal roles from dark-skinned women.
Since the announcement of this casting and reveal of Amandla as Princess Amari, the internet has brought the receipts. And yes, Amandla is guilty of her crimes. For example, Rue from the Hunger Games books was explicitly described as having dark brown skin and brown eyes, implying she was a Black girl, or more to the point, a dark-skinned girl. She is also the voice behind Margot Kess, or Spider-Bite, in the movie Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, who, as we can see, is a dark-skinned monoracial Black girl character. Amandla also took the role as Star Carter in the crime drama film The Hate U Give, which also originated from a book. Here's the cover of the book. Clearly this is a dark-skinned monoracial Black girl on the cover, and the cast of the family is a monoracial Black family, other than biracial actress Amandla. And that is unfortunately a thing in Black media, casting a Black family with usually the wife and daughter as lighter skin or biracial. That is a huge part of the erasure of Black women and girls in the media. Amandla isn't the first to do it, but as we can see, she is a participant. And it's not just fictional Black girl roles that she takes. In Drunk History, Amandla was cast to play the very real Black woman Elizabeth Eckford of the Little Rock Nine. Of course, she fails to bring this up in her response, but as we can see, her erasure truly knows no bounds.
I've spoken about it a lot already, but mostly in print, interviews, and the realization that I should have come to a lot more quickly was that nobody's trying to read all that, ever. So I'm hoping that with this, at least a feeling of acknowledgement can be achieved.
Heads up and trigger warning. There are moments in this speech where Amanda gets, in my opinion, quite haughty. And I get it. She's defending her place in this industry and essentially her coin. However, this shows her lack of respect towards the collective of Black girls and women. Just now, what she says comes off as, I spoke on this already, but I guess you guys don't read. And hey, that's just my interpretation. But I can't help but sense arrogance in between her lines, and I feel like this comes from the ingrained entitlement to Black girl image and space we see demonstrated often in many biracial and mixed women. And what sticks out most about this sense of entitlement is that they only have this kind of smoke for their Black side, never their non-Black side that is also half of their identity. Black girls and biracial girls each have their own image for representation, but often in media we see biracial and mixed actresses like Amandla occupy the space for Black women and girl roles as well as their own. And because Black women and girls are at a disadvantage in representation, we have to make this distinction in order to protect our image from erasure. Check out my videos, The Erasure Effect and Overanalyzing Black versus Beige Representation in K-pop for more on this topic. And this is why I don't take a lot of celebrity activism seriously, especially those who claim to support the Black community and feminism, because it always stops short at issues that affect specifically Black women, and Amandla is no exception, and she really proves it in this TikTok speech.
I've been through a lot of shit, y'all. Like, this year was mostly defined for me, honestly, by contending with what it felt like to receive racist death threats just for existing in the Star Wars universe. And that was a really difficult thing for me to move through. But honestly, it feels so much more painful for me to feel like I'm at odds with my own community.
I did not appreciate the comparison of the racism she received from the Star Wars series that I did not watch to the legitimate backlash she received for this blood and bone casting. Often people make false equivalences to Black women who point out their erasure to racism non-white people receive from their inclusive roles. Backlash from racism and backlash from erasure are not the same. They come from two different places, and only one group has actual consequences from it. And I'll give you a hint, it's the people being erased. I talk about this in depth in my video currently titled Fan Art and the True Intentions Behind Demonizing Fandom. But when you're a part of a marginalized group where there is a clear media bias, which you already suffer from negative or lack of positive representation, erasing opportunity in media, especially media that is specifically created for your image in favor of non-Black, lighter, more close to white phenotype, is harmful. Positive representation fights back against stereotypes that have been normalized in society, which have real and often fatal consequences on individuals in real life. And that's what makes this comparison so dishonest. For a group that is not marginalized and has full control of their image, as well as an overwhelmingly abundance of positive representation, inclusivity doesn't affect them at all, so any backlash received from that is clearly just bias and pure racism. And by the way, those inclusive roles aren't created by the minority groups cast into them. They are created and chosen by members of the majority. And yeah, they often do it to pander. The role Amandla took was created by a Black girl for a Black girl. Or so I thought. But we're going to touch on that in just a moment. Let's continue.
I just want everybody to know that this is important to me, that I think about it with every choice that I make, that I would never navigate my career blindly and ignorantly, not thinking about my skin tone or the space that I occupy, and that I would never go after a role that I didn't feel like it was right for me to chase, that I want to see all skin tones represented in media. I know that colorism is an insidious system that impacts every single facet of entertainment just relentlessly.
This gave me the impression that Amandla is very out of touch and feels entitled to the roles regardless of her participation in erasure of Black girl image. It is not only her skin tone that gives her more opportunity over Black women, but her proximity to non-Blackness. Being biracial is another huge advantage to why she can occupy so much space in the Black community, as well as media for Black girls. Anti-Blackness runs deep, and colorism as well as texturism and featureism affect Black girls more than anyone else in the Black community. It's not all skin tones that are dealing with erasure. It's dark skin. By saying all skin tones, which she does a lot in this speech, she is deflecting from the focus of the issue, which is erasing images and opportunities for Black girls, specifically dark-skinned, unambiguous, and monoracial Black girls to be seen in film. And if we're speaking from our community, it's not all of us that aren't being represented in the media. It's dark-skinned Black girls. I've mentioned this in the Erasure Effect as well as my Why Do Black Girls Watch Game of Thrones video essay, but erasure and colorism does not affect Black boys and men the same way it does Black girls, and we can see this here in the casting of Blood and Bone as well as a variety of media. Like most people who benefit from colorism, she skips over addressing that directly, which comes off as extremely dishonest. For Amandla to be so selective in what she chooses to acknowledge as her privilege comes off so disingenuous to me.
I also just have to let go at the end of the day of people knowing what my intention is or who I am, but
Amandla proves her true intentions by her actions. But what I hear when she says this is that she doesn't care about upsetting Black women specifically. And in my opinion, why should Black women and girls continue to support her if this is her attitude to the things that affect us primarily?
At the very least, I can speak to where this stems from and provide some clarification there. Really, it goes back to my work in The Hate You Give. I think most people online have seen an image of me next to this book cover, and they've immediately assumed she's trying to snatch up roles from places that she shouldn't. The process behind The Hate You Give was so interesting because Angie's manuscript was so good that before the book was even published, they started circulating the manuscript around agencies. Studios started grabbing at the opportunity to adapt it, to turn it into a movie. So after the studio started packaging it, they asked Angie Thomas, the novelist, I love you, Angie, who are you interested in for this role? And Angie said that she was interested in me. Now, mind you, this was at a point in time where I was a youth. I was active on the streets online. This is before y'all completely run me off of Twitter. I'm not calling it X, fuck that man. But I was posting fervently as a teenager about the things that I believed in, and I was engaging in conversation a lot. I was talking about Black Lives Matter. I was talking about cultural appropriation. I was talking about police brutality. And so Angie was aware that my spirit was in alignment with this project. And so they brought me in for a director session, and I booked the job. We were already so deep in that process when the book was published and this book cover was chosen. When the book cover was chosen, I honestly didn't even think that much of it. I was just like, wow, what a beautiful illustration that encapsulates the spirit of this piece of work. This was actually the book cover that was chosen in the UK. And then this is how Star is described in the book, as having medium brown complexion. So if you were to Pantone color chart it and say that's the shade that Star should be, I would probably honestly take a gander somewhere in between this complexion and this complexion, something like that. Or you might interpret it differently. That's the thing about interpretive language.
So here, Amandla is either genuinely ignorant or being intentionally dishonest again. Because yes, the book cover is one indication of Amandla erasing Black girl imagery. Clearly, the author intended for the main character Star to be a Black girl by the imagery on the book, where we can see undeniably by her hair and her skin tone, she is clearly unambiguous. But another huge indicator, which Amandla leaves out, is the other people cast as Star's family. As I mentioned before, the family in The Hate You Give are unambiguously monoracial and Black. Amandla is the only member of the family who appears biracial. If they intended for the character to look biracial, why isn't one of the parents non-Black? Amandla is biracial, which in this space means she benefits and contributes to the erasure of Black girl imagery due to the preferential treatment and discrimination of Black features. Seemingly, based on her defense, she has never tried to educate herself further on colorism, texturism, and featureism, which are each discrimination that targets natural features of Black girls and their predominant phenotype, dark skin, Afro-textured hair, and facial features. Although a huge part of it, This is more than just skin tone. One thing Amandla does often in this speech, which I find so interesting because it was the focal point of my previous video, The Erasure Effect, is that she points to the Black women writers and tells us, well, they wanted me, which I don't doubt. Amandla feels justified in her participation of erasing Black woman imagery because it was essentially co-signed by a Black woman. And that is what I was talking about in my video, Black women, we need to do better. Too many Black women have pedestalized biracial and mixed women in their spaces, which, side note, is unreciprocated, and are evidently contributing to their own erasure. This is undoubtedly a sign of low self-esteem and self-hate. No other group of women, including mixed and biracial women, put other women and their phenotype above their own, and they are especially not doing it for Black women. I really hope that Black women and girls can see through the colorism, texturism, featureism that others project onto you and refrain from internalizing it, because this is the result of it. Allowing inclusivity towards our image and space creates people like Amandla who feel entitled to it. Also, being an advocate of Black Lives Matter and cultural appropriation doesn't give anyone a pass at erasing our image and infiltrating our space. Because if you truly cared about Black women, you would show respect to them first and foremost. And defending your participation in erasure of their image in the media is not respect. When Amandla tries to deflect her actions by showing UK's version, which depicts a lighter-skinned girl on the cover, and then the book quoting the description of Star being medium brown, it really proves her intentional dishonesty to me. She still avoids the fact that the character is not mixed like she is, but a monoracial Black American girl, and there is a big difference between medium brown and beige. I know color-struck people like to make the distinction between brown skin and dark skin, but brown skin is dark skin. On the spectrum of color and skin tone, brown is dark, and Amandla is neither. But again, this is more than skin tone. Like I said, Star is not biracial. And this is why making the distinction between Black and biracial representation is so important. Because our representation is not equally distributed, biracial and mixed girls can easily take over our image and charge it as Black, which ultimately leaves us out.
And honestly, what I feel like is coming up again with this situation with Children of Blood and Bone. And I saw the casting call come into my inbox for Children of Blood and Bone. I was so motherfucking hype because these stories are so rare to come across. First thing that I did was look up a picture of the character. This was the first thing that I saw on the Wikipedia page. And I said, hold up.
So as we finally get into Blood and Bone, Amandla decides to pick out very specific fan art that she feels supports her casting for the character. She finds the lightest art of Amari out there. I find it interesting how she cherry picks, but also how she again ignores that she is biracial and not monoracial like the character.
I was so excited to see that there was this depiction of this character that I could potentially be perfectly suited for. When I read the novel, I read this story about this kingdom where magical people who are described as having darker skin are oppressed for their magical capabilities, and people who look more like me are the ruling class and the oppressors. And so I thought to myself, not only do I fit this character description, but my skin tone actually serves the story in supporting the allegory about colorism and oppression.
I don't know what book Amandla's assistant read out loud to her, but I am very confused as to which part of Amari's character is perfect for her. As far as I've noticed, there aren't any biracial or mixed people in the book. A light-skinned Black person isn't equivalent to a mixed person. And that's also a major point of the story that Amandla seems to lack understanding. The royal family is lighter skinned, which is why Amari stands out. Amari is a princess and the darkest member of her family. Her family has a much lighter skin tone compared to Amari, who is not biracial, just a lighter shade of brown. Amari is insecure about her skin because the royal court often whispers about how they believe she's illegitimate child of the king because she isn't as light as her brother, the king, nor her mother. And that's why Amandla's casting makes zero sense, because Amandla is the only light-skinned person in the cast, and those cast as a part of the royal family. Also, this casting really proves how colorism does not affect Black men and boys the same way it affects Black girls. Why isn't Prince Iman cast by a light-skinned actor? Or biracial like Amari? He is described as lighter skinned in the book. And her mother, Regina King, is darker than the actress playing her daughter, who in the book she applies makeup to in order to make her appear lighter. Although I'm sure they're going to use all the filters throughout the movie to make Amandla look darker, it seems like Amandla has intentionally twisted her misinterpretation of Amari to the point where she feels like she is perfect for the character, despite everything that the character stands for and experiences in the book. Mentioned in my video, The Erasure Effect, I feel like they are going to misuse the definition of colorism, as so many colorist people do, and attempt to redefine it as a struggle for light-skinned people instead of its true meaning and purpose, which is to benefit light-skinned people. And after discovering that the director of the film is too a biracial woman, I wouldn't be surprised if Amandla's casting was a self-insert and this whole misrepresentation of colorism wasn't completely intentional. And for the directors, producers, writers, whoever to do that in this movie would be a huge disservice to Black girls and fans of the book. This is something I see often, especially in the comments of my video essays, where I intentionally and repeatedly define the meaning of the word. Many people who either hate or don't empathize with Black girls and women intentionally try to appropriate the word colorism to mean discrimination that anyone of any skin tone can experience. This is false. This is not the definition of the word. No matter how much you dislike dark-skinned people, the word was created specifically to acknowledge and explain their plight. Anyone can face discrimination of their skin, sure, but colorism is specifically the discrimination and prejudice towards dark-skinned people, usually by the same people in their ethnic group. And I feel like the reason they cast a biracial actress instead of a Black actress or even a lighter skinned monoracial Black actress is so they could perpetuate the colorist stereotypes that undermine dark skinned Black girls, which associates Amari's qualities and characteristics of being beautiful, soft, royal, and feminine with being light and biracial. Especially in contrast to Zaylee, who is played by an unambiguous Black girl. Zaylee's character is more aligned with the warrior trope, which is a masculine trope often and insidiously associated with Black girl imagery and phenotype.
I went through the audition process. It was a very challenging one. I flew out to LA for the screen test, and then I waited and waited some more, and I got the phone call that I had booked it, and I flipped out. And then I had the opportunity to meet Tomi, the novelist, for the first time, and we met up for dinner. First off, she's gorgeous and incredible. You would just be shook meeting her, point blank, period. But then she goes, Amandla, I want you to know that when you were a little girl and you were cast as Rue in the Hunger Games, and you had these racist remarks thrown at you because people said that Rue's death wouldn't be as sad because you're a Black girl, that inspired me to write this series so that Black girls like you and Black girls of all shades could have a story written about them. I said, Tomi, don't do that to me, girl. Don't do that to me. And we looked into each other's eyes and we started crying. And I said, God wants me here.
I know and expect that women like Amandla will always defend what keeps them on top, such as colorism and preferential treatment, especially if it undermines Black women and girls. That does not surprise me nor hurt my feelings. What makes me disappointed is to hear unambiguous dark-skinned Black women defend their erasure and pedestalize mixed girls in their space. I know it comes from low self-esteem and internalized self-hate, but hearing that Tomi said this, which I don't doubt she said, really turned me off from her, this upcoming movie, and the book series completely. Black girls like you? Let's be honest, Amandla is not a Black girl like me nor Tomi. She is a mixed girl with mixed girl privilege in Black media spaces, and Tomi really let her Black girl supporters down with this one. We need to be honest about making the distinction between Black girl and biracial girls because they are not treated the same in both real life and with media representation. To pretend that they are is doing a huge disservice to all Black girls, and to pretend that black girls of all shades lack representation when we can see that it's primarily dark-skinned black girls who lack positive representation, especially due to biracial women like Amandla inserting themselves in our spaces and taking the black girl roles, and then black women like Tomi putting them there. That is tremendously undermining to black women, and like I said, extremely dishonest. And I'm gonna keep it really real with you guys. After I heard Amandla say this, I had to quit the book. I was 70% through Children of Blood and Bone, but I can't support this disrespect towards black women. I was disgusted. You know me. I'm too smart, too sensitive, and too much of an Aries to let stuff like this go. Maybe one day I'll forgive her and finish the story, but not today.
When the casting announcement came out, I went back to the Wikipedia page and I said, hold up now, y'all not putting that much effort to try to cash me out. It's a motherfucking psyop at this point.
Okay, so this made me laugh out loud. I'm proud of black girls for going back and correcting the fan art to represent Amani undoubtedly in their image. That's how you put yourself first. And I was very proud to see multiple black women of all shades speak out on why Amandla's casting for this character was crazy.
Now, the first time that Amari is described in the book, the way that I interpreted this when I read it was this is an incredibly colorist society that these royals exist in, and Amari's mother is lighter than her, comparatively. I think I read it that way because of language that I kept reading afterwards also, like, the girl's copper skin and thick robes scream of noble blood. She's also described as having oak brown skin, and in descriptions of characters with oak brown skin stands out against the darker chestnut and mahogany hues of the villagers. So I felt like I could read myself in that language, but I also felt like what was so beautiful was that this was a story about two girls who were so different from each other, and that difference had isolated them from each other and given them preconceived notions about each other, but they had to overcome that difference in order to love each other. And for the past several months, that's what I've found in all of the fan art that I've researched. The story of difference.
You know, Amandla is really trying to defend her skin tone in this role as if she's not half Danish. Nowhere in the description did they mention Amari's Danish heritage, and that's what makes Amandla's speech so disingenuous, because she's intentionally leaving out the fact that she's mixed, as if that's not a huge factor in all of this. It would be one thing to cast Amari as a light-skinned, unambiguous black girl. It would still be weird and off, don't get me wrong. But what makes this so outlandish is the fact that they went out of their way to cast Amandla. A story about monoracial Africans should be a safe place for black girl representation, but as we can see, Amandla feels very entitled to this space as well. And Amandla feels justified in the uncanon fan art you guys drew. Black women and girls, please put yourself and your features first in everything you do, including the art you create, because people like Amandla will continue to be disingenuous about your plight, or any plight that is specific to black women and girls, and it's so annoying.
But if you envisioned Amari differently, I think that's a beautiful thing as well. I think that that is the power of interpretation and of literature, that we're able to take these words and imbue them with our own meaning and our own experience and have them reflect still at the end of the day our shared humanity. And you know, Tomi is our executive producer and our writer now, and I know that's what she wants to see. She wants to see a world on screen that is vibrant with different skin tones and different shades, because this movie is going to be for everyone in the black community. It's going to be a film that celebrates the entire diaspora of black experience globally. I don't know what I did in a past life to end up in a situation where I get to develop these relationships with these black female writers and be a part of their adaptations. But I promise you that I only want to honor them. When Angie Thomas was holding onto my hand and she saw the heat give for the first time and she was squeezing so tight and tears were streaming down her face, like, I wouldn't trade that for anything.
I understand that there are a lot of black women and girls out there who desperately want to believe that biracial imagery in the media represents them, and that the positive and preferential treatment associated with mixed girl imagery will trickle down to them. And I know to those girls, my message, feelings, opinions, and interpretations will be labeled as divisive. But that's what happens when you're not used to hearing a Black woman put herself first. Black women and girls are often demonized for prioritizing their image and gatekeeping their identity and representation, even though literally every group of people do it. And this is an indication that our representation has been misused. As I always state in all my videos, acknowledging our individual representation is not hate, and Black girls and women should be able to have boundaries to protect our imagery so we can focus on improving it without being falsely accused of being divisive. Women who benefit from colorism and the erasure of Black women in the media will always defend what keeps them on top. Throughout this speech, Amandla ignored the aspects that make this situation a Black girl-specific plight, as well as the privilege she has within the space due to her proximity to non-Blackness being biracial. Amandla tried to take away the significance this movie could have and should have had for Black girls and their image on screen, with them being the center of the story and all. Instead, Amandla repeatedly doubled down and did what we often see in cultural appropriation and overemphasized children of blood and bone being representation for everyone. And that came off very malicious to me. She intentionally sought to take the spotlight off of Black girls so they couldn't feel entitled to their own celebration of their image and representation, therefore defending her participation in erasing it. Amandla, and those who behave and think like her, are not an ally to you Black girls. And like I mentioned in my previous video, you shouldn't automatically expect allyship from those mixed with Black because a lot of the time they have a superiority complex over you due to the privilege they receive. And I think Amandla demonstrates that within this speech. And of course, not all, but people are competitive among other things, so, use your discernment. This is why it is so important for Black girls who value their representation to make the distinction between Black and biracial image in the media. One thing Amandla continued to point out during this disingenuous defense of her participation in the erasure of Black women in the media was that she was supported by monoracial Black women like Tomi. Beware a Black woman like that too. Some Black girls have truly internalized their inferiority complex. And although I try to have patience with them because it takes some of us a while to get there, I also stay clear of them too. I would love to see the collective of Black women pull back in supporting their erasure, specifically monetarily, as well as from those who participate in it and learn to decode colorist language and behaviors. Amandla really exposed herself in this speech. She does not care about the lack of Black girl representation, and for a video that was supposed to be her addressing it, she failed to acknowledge her contribution to the main complaint that fueled the backlash, the erasure to Black women in the media created for them. And honestly, I'm not surprised. But I mean, hey, that's just my interpretation. Thank you guys for watching. For more insight into Black girl representation, please check out the playlist link below. Let me know what your interpretation of Princess Amari or Amandla's Fugazi response in the comments. If you disagree with my interpretation, that's fine. Just keep it cute in the comments and we won't have a problem. But I truly appreciate you guys for watching and interacting with my video. Please watch the Erasure Effect. Happy Black History Month. I actually had more videos for this month planned, but I decided to allow myself some rest. So I'll sprinkle them throughout the year instead. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. I'll see you guys later. Bye.